If Republicans want to turn the United States into Russia, where we disappear political opponents with zero due process, sending them to foreign gulags somewhere, if that's really what you're running on behind the banner of the Party of Law and Order, be my guest.
Brian Tyler Cohen went on the Elex Michaelson show where he debated Tomi Lahren. They debated a few years ago. This is the first time in a while that they have debated. This is always entertaining. We're going to take a look at these clips of Tomi Lahren and Brian Tyler Cohen. I'm going to share my input and my views on this too. Let's get into it together.
We're talking with Tomi Lahren on the right, Brian Tyler Cohen on the left. Let's talk about immigration now. We have seen a massive drop-off in illegal border crossings after President Trump has really cracked down in immigration. Biggest changes probably of anything he's done from the Biden administration. There are also a series of lawsuits, though, claiming that the administration is rushing to deport people who legally have a right to be here. The administration admitting, at least in one instance, they did make a mistake. Tomi, this is your issue. What do you make of President Trump's approach to immigration? And what do you say to critics who feel like he's rushing it and some people are getting caught up in the middle who shouldn't?
Well, listen, if you're an illegal alien, you have no legal right to be in this country, so you're not getting caught up in anything. I would just say that. I can't wait to talk about the so-called administrative error, and I can't wait to listen to Brian Tyler Cohen defend criminal illegal aliens. That's a wonderful hill for Democrats to die on. I encourage you to continue doing that. But I'll tell you this. President Biden said it couldn't be done. He said you cannot secure the border without the bipartisan border bill. Well, I guess that was a lie, just like everything else they fed to us during those 4 years where we essentially had a vegetable in office. It can be done. President Trump has managed to do it in less than 3 months. When you had border crossings, thousands a day, and now you're down to about a handful of gotaways, if that, I think this is an incredible success. Not only are we deporting criminal illegal aliens, we're keeping people from coming into this country illegally so we don't have to deal with the problem of deporting criminal illegal aliens 5-10 years down the road. This is an incredible success. President Trump has been able to do it in rapid speed, and there's nobody getting caught up that has a legal right to be here. You come into this country illegally, you are up for deportation. That might make Democrats mad, but I think that most of us on the right and the country that voted for this are quite happy with what's going on.
Brian, what's wrong with that?
It's interesting that you say nobody's getting caught up, because Abrego Garcia was caught up by getting sent to a foreign gulag in El Salvador when the Trump administration itself conceded that it was an administrative error. And so the Supreme Court, this 6-3 conservative Supreme Court, and a court that is so extreme, we've never seen a court this far right in our lifetimes, ruled 9-0 unanimously that he had to be sent back. So to claim that no one is getting caught up in this system when that is exactly what's happening and it's being litigated at the highest levels of the judiciary is pretty bad faith here.
Tomi?
Oh, I can't wait to respond to that. So this person that was caught up, the so-called Maryland father that y'all like to talk about, it's not that he was caught up because he was a legal citizen or because he wasn't gang affiliated. It was an administrative error talking about the flight itself, okay? So it's not as if, and it actually really bothers me when those on the left say that there are just average Americans being swept up because they have a funny-looking tattoo. That's not the reality. In fact, that is a lie. And it's really unfortunate that that's the narrative the left has to go with here. I understand that there is due process, but I think you understand, Brian Tyler Cohen, that there is a different set of rules for due process for people who have no legal right to be in this country, and especially when your own county has said that you are gang affiliated. That wasn't President Trump that said it. That was the Prince George County that said that this was a gang affiliated person. So if you're going to talk about people getting swept up, at least have your facts correct. This irritates me to no end.
So, Tomi Lahren, an administrative error makes it okay to deport somebody from the country with no due process? I don't really see the logic there. And isn't everyone in the country, whether they're here legally or not, protected under due process? Isn't that the way that our country is supposed to operate?
Brian, but to the bigger point of all of this, despite some of these cases, is there value in what the president is doing? I mean, we have seen these border crossings go way, way down.
I'll certainly concede that Joe Biden could have done more and should have done more to take control of what was happening at the border. And in fact, his unwillingness to do that is largely what created the political environment for Trump to be able to exploit a lot of the pain that Americans were feeling as it relates to immigration. But that's still no excuse for Donald Trump to engage in this lawless deportation effort for people who haven't had due process to the point where the courts had to step in. I know that you're trying to make some weird distinction between due process rights for people who are Americans or legal residents, as was the case with Abrego Garcia. But the Constitution says that if you are here, you are entitled to due process. And that is not what these people are getting. That is why the courts had to order them sent back. That's why the courts had to order the planes get turned around. And of course, the Trump administration opted to defy it, not before we have folks like J.D. Vance who came on Twitter trying to beat his chest about how great it was that these people were deported. And how no court would push back on this when the Supreme Court and all the federal judiciary is doing exactly that. But the reality is that these people are entitled to due process. And if you believe in what you're saying, which presumably the Trump administration does, they should have no problem proving this stuff in court.
Tomi?
Well, I would just say if Democrats, I started out with it, Elex, and I'm going to continue on it. If Democrats really want to die on the hill of bringing back plane loads of criminal, illegal alien gang members.
But you haven't proven that they're criminals.
Please.
That's the problem. Like, look, I will be the first one to say if there is a criminal, if there is a gang member in this country, someone who has committed any crime, big or small, get him out. Sure. I'll absolutely concede that. We don't need criminals in this country. But if you're talking about somebody who you don't know because you haven't afforded them due process, then you can't just make that claim.
Well, again, I will say it was actually Prince George County that labeled this person a gang member, and he is in fact an illegal alien. But we can go anecdotes aside. We can argue over the Maryland father all day long. I'd be happy to do it. I've done a deep dive into this particular case. But the fact remains, President Trump is not only securing our border, but he is deporting criminal, illegal aliens. If Democrats want to stand in the way of that and they want to tell their constituents, hey, vote for us in the midterms, vote for us in 2028, we'll make sure that the criminal aliens come back. Far be it for me to stand in your way. Continue that message. Best of luck with it.
And if Republicans want to run on, hey, we can disappear you with no due process, far be it for me to stand in your way. If Republicans want to turn the United States into Russia, where we disappear political opponents with zero due process, sending them to foreign gulags somewhere, if that's really what you're running on behind the banner of the Party of Law and Order, be my guest.
All right, I don't think we're going to get together on that one.
Here's the thing. So MAGA people like Tomi Lahren, they don't care if they deport people who haven't committed any crimes. It doesn't matter to them. They don't care if the wrong people get deported and sent to El Salvador like the Maryland father. It doesn't matter to them. I do think that Tomi Lahren is right that this is a tricky situation for the Democratic Party, because I think most Americans do not really care. I think it's probably a minority of Americans that really care about people being deported and whether they've committed crimes or not. I think probably the majority of the people look at it the way the Republicans frame it, that if someone is here illegally, that they're a criminal, even though it's only a misdemeanor, so it's like a traffic ticket. But one of the impacts that this is having on our country is foreigners are scared to come to the United States to travel. The people who want to come here and spend money and not break laws, that want to come here to vacation. I read a report the other day, I believe it was travel to the United States since Donald Trump has come into office is down 13%. I'm surprised it's not more than that. I can't imagine why anybody would want to come to the United States right now. You know, you could be just a person here on vacation and a T's not crossed or an I isn't dotted correctly on your visa or your passport, and they throw you into a prison somewhere. And then maybe it takes days or weeks or months for you to get out. Let me know in the comments, if you live outside the United States, would you travel here now? I mean, I would. If I lived outside of the United States, I would not come here. I would be really scared. But again, Tomi Lahren does not care what person, whether they're here legally, illegally, whatever. If they're a foreigner, they get deported. MAGA and Tomi Lahren doesn't care about this. But let me know what you think in the comments. Do you agree with what Tomi Lahren had to say here? Do you agree with Brian Tyler Cohen? I'm certainly more on the side of Brian Tyler Cohen on this, but let me know what you think in the comments. Make sure to give me a like and subscribe. This is Chris on Culture, and I will see you in the next video.